I'm 23 years old. It's February 1997. I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's my first year of medical school, and my plan's not going as I wanted to go. I'm just not feeling the way that I thought I would my first year of medical school, and it's a hard time for me. I close my eyes and I think back to Colorado. I'm flying. I'm in the Slingsby T3A Firefly. Captain Lanzetta, my instructor pilot's to my left. We're still in the practice area, and I'm flying, and Pikes Peak is off to my left. Captain Lanzetta looks over and says, "Let's do a barrel roll around Pikes Peak." Position Pikes Peak off to my left, and as we cross the horizon, my wings, I pull back on the stick, rolling my wings over. We go inverted, our head scraping the top of Pikes Peak, and I roll perfectly back to level flight. Captain Lizette looks over. Good job, Skin Man. I love flying, but more importantly, I love the way that I felt when I was flying. I felt free. It was exhilarating. I was able to leave my problems on the ground. And when I was up in the sky, I just really felt alive. I'm back in Charlottesville, sitting on that couch, and I have a letter in my hand. It's from my dad. My dad knows I'm having a little bit of a challenge in school, and he writes me a letter, and I read it again for the second time. My greatest regret was the lost opportunities. You had the privilege of hearing her greatest fears and her acceptance of mortality. I never accepted that she was dying and never understood how she felt. My dad had written this after reading a journal that I had written in sixth grade, and I'm not sure when he read this, but these words, uh, they're not as comforting as he would like them to be. And some of it is that I'm not sure that I completely understand if I feel the way he feels that I've experienced that story. And now I'm back in Colorado. It's a year earlier, and he's come out to help me between a decision and between pilot training and medical school. And that trip didn't go well. And it ended, we were skiing the last day. We're at the top of the chairlift, and he sinks down into the snow crying and tells me, I came out here to help you, and you won't talk to me. And I couldn't talk to him. I couldn't explain how I felt about flying, and I couldn't explain this pull that I felt to medical school that was a combination of kind of bravery and fear at that time. And I couldn't talk to him about it because I couldn't explain it. I'm 11 years old now. It's 1985. My grandmother was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer 6 months ago. I went to the school library and read up about it, and I could easily tell this was a fatal disease, but it seemed like I was the only one that knew this. It didn't seem like my dad knew it. Didn't seem like anyone else in the family. I wasn't even sure if my grandmother knew this. And on a warm September afternoon, my mom and I were going to my grandparents' house. My grandparents were supposed to be going to Atlanta the next day for a wedding, and we're dropping off a present. And I walked in the house, and I looked to the bedroom. My grandfather and my dad are there, and I can immediately tell that things are not good. My aunt and a doctor walk out, and they end up going into the kitchen to figure out what to do next. And my mom and I walk into the bedroom where my grandmother is. The room's dark, the shades are drawn. There's a small light on the side table, and my grandmother is lying there. And I walk over to her, and she lifts out her hand to hold my hand. And I hold my hand, and it had a special warmth to it. And our eyes meet, and I can see that she's scared. She's afraid. And she looks up and holding my hand says, I thought I had more time. And even at 11 years old, I instinctively was kind of awestruck when someone tells you words that are just essential to our humanity. And these are probably the truest words that she ever spoke. And I held her hand and felt that awe and the humanity of it all, even at that age. And eventually, the group comes in and the decision is ambulance is coming. She's going to go to the hospital to get more chemotherapy. And she looks up again and says, I don't want to go to the hospital. And I say nothing. I let go of her hand and eventually move to the side of the room. An ambulance comes. She struggles to the stretcher. Off to the hospital she goes, followed by everyone else. My mom and I are left behind to clean up. And I'm in her bedroom and I see her glasses, her slippers, the bag that was packed for the trip. And I've always been kind of in wonder of these personal items that have such an attachment to people when they're here. And now it just seemed so lost at that point. And I walk out of the house and I start becoming frantic, some energies with me, tears start falling down my face, and I start to cry. And I decide I'm going to become a doctor so that I can be so good that people like my grandmother won't die. 40 years later, I've become a radiation oncologist and I've helped many people just like I intended to that day in the living room. It's been very special to me, very important to me, these relationships that I built. But one thing that I always bothered me, that same kind of feeling that I had in Charlottesville, was the loss and suffering and limits of control that I saw with my patients. And I wondered whether I could handle that, whether that's something that I could deal with. And it really was hard for me to wonder that because I didn't know. In 2018, my dad was diagnosed with dementia. He now has advanced dementia. And it's been a series of small deaths as we've lost him and lost our family as we've wandered into this uncharted, territory that's very difficult to navigate. And some of the things that I've learned from this is that as a doctor, as someone who's supposed to fix things, I can't fix this. And the harder I tried, the more difficult it came and the more struggles that I developed doing that. Became so bad that I would developing palpitations, having trouble sleeping, was angry, and was so far off from the person that I wanted to be. I did read a lot and I did some meditation, and there's a quote from Ernest Hemingway. And the quote was, "The world breaks every way." And afterwards, some are made strong in the broken places. And I wanted that for me, but I still didn't know how to get there. And the quote goes on and it says, "But those it does not break, it kills. It kills the very good, the very gentle, and the very brave impartially." And I got to thinking about this, and I got to thinking about in that bedroom how I was hoping becoming a doctor would protect me from this. I got to thinking the conversation that my dad had, and how what we really needed to talk about was how fragile and finite our lives were. That was the conversation that we needed to have. And I wasn't able to have it at that time. And it wasn't until I had to deal with my dad's dementia that I was able to finally face up to this that had given me lifelong feeling that I just couldn't do it. And I finally figure out that I have to break. And so I meditate and I let myself break into 1,000 pieces. And I can imagine my dad telling me, "Son, you've tried so hard, but you can't fix this. Just let go. Just embrace each and every moment, however imperfect."